Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. Being a parent and being on social media is one of the most confusing things I have ever done. In under 10 minutes, I can be sold at least 20 recipes, must-have shopping lists, parenting hacks for meltdowns, feeding, sleep, and these days, self-care rabbit holes. What self-care is, what it isn't, why I'm not doing enough, and how that's probably going to prematurely kill me. It's all a lot. And that's before you factor in all the career keeping up with the Joneses type stuff. Today's guest takes all of it with a grain of salt. She's navigating a way of parenting and partnership that fits her life. She knows herself well enough to know what's hard for her to resist, and she loves efficiency, but she also knows nothing is less efficient than getting 2 young kids out the door or managing a demanding schedule at work when there's always a strep throat grenade one sniffle away. Today on the pod, we have the actual podcast queen herself, Paige Port. She's the president of Dear Media, home to some of your favorite podcasts, and I can't wait for you to hear her story. Her career trajectory has been a function of following intuitively the things she loves and making everyone else love them too. Today's pod is for those who know who they are, what they want, and give themselves the grace to recognize that that can change over time, and the chutzpah to just get after it. Enjoy.
Oh my God, we're in the closet.
Bitches in the closet.
Today.
Hi, welcome to Diddle.
Hi.
Middle.
Should we sit across from each other?
No, this is how we do it here.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to sit over there, you can. You are
no.
literally the podcast professional.
It's more so just because I feel like I'll perform better.
Then go the fuck over there. You literally are the most podcast professional experienced person that's ever been on this podcast.
Okay. Then I can just look at you and we can make eye contact.
I like it.
And the whole thing. So,
and you can like brush my clothes if you want.
Yeah, all your great jackets.
Okay, so welcome to the closet. We're in the closet.
It's so nice to be here.
This is basically like us hanging out at Go Greek. The only difference is we're in my closet and we have microphones, but everything else is the same. I remember the first time you and I had I think our first alone date, and we went to Sportsman's Lodge, and you gave me a little bit of the Paige life story of your genesis to where you are now as a real boss bitch. Boss, bitch. There's a difference. So I kind of want to do that. I want to get your career trajectory, and then throughout that picture, we want to look back to what makes Paige from childhood and look forward to now you have your own family, and what are we taking from childhood and bringing forward? What are we leaving behind?
This is so fun.
That's sort of the thing. So you've given the spiel, I know 1,000 times about how do you come to be the president of Dear Media, but give it to me one more time.
It's actually fun to think back of
one more time.
My loneliness. It's fun to think back pre even grown up adult Paige with a full-time job, because from a young age, my parents always instilled a very strong work ethic in me and my siblings. And
all 5,000 of your siblings?
All 5 of us. And we always had summer jobs and responsibilities. We did not go to summer camp. And which is crazy to think, because my mom then and dad were just had all 5 kids at home with them all summer long. We did go to my grandparents' house in Missouri for a couple of weeks. So I guess that was kind of our version of summer camp, but we always had some sort of job. And for the early years, it was working at my dad's company. And it was,
business.
yeah. And we were tagging hang tags in, junior loungewear and like putting the Walmart, using like one of those label guns
I
with
always
like
wanted to get my hands on one of those.
But they're the worst. And like you have to stack it with the little plastic, piece of whatever that connects the hang tag then to the garment and like put it in the right tag and the whole thing. And so from a very early age, I was always doing stuff like during the summer and working. And after I kind of grew old of that gig, I then had a bunch of different internships that gave me a lot of different perspective into different industries. I worked for a production company down the street on the, is it CBS lot there?
Radford.
Like on Radford. Yeah. So I had an internship there and I was working in the mailroom. Like I was literally delivering mail.
How old were you at this time?
I was driving. So I was probably 16 years old and I was delivering mail, picking up mail. Like this was old school entertainment where like all of that was coming in and out of the office every single day. I was cleaning up the kitchen, throwing out boxes of donuts every single day. And like but I was hearing all these exciting conversations that were taking place. And I was just fascinated by what was happening in TV and film and how shows got made and seeing, people on the golf carts on the lot, like with their bosses or with clients and talent and just filming, which was cool. And then I, after that, interned for the Red Sox in Boston for 3 summers.
Sure.
And
how does that even come about?
It was through my best friend and I had... I don't even know how to. We had a hookup, and
these are LA kids. Like weird shit happens.
And
like this.
and so we interned for the Red Sox for 3 summers, and we had all different jobs within that organization.
Didn't Alex Edelman?
We interned together.
No.
Yeah, we interned together way back when.
That's so funny.
He's the same guy he was then as he is now. Like just this nice, and super smart. Yeah. And so we actually worked on the ring raffle. It was the summer after the Red Sox had won the World Series, and they were doing a raffle of a World Series ring. And so you could buy tickets and you were entered to win, this like insane piece of jewelry. And Alex and our friend Steve, who is now married to my friend Amanda, who we all interned together. Like
Crazy.
They met and fell in love while we interned for the Red Sox. And it was that job too. It was like just it was like in the world of media, but a different side of it, and seeing the sports piece of ticket sales and sponsorships and even like their summer concert series was something that we were loosely working across. And yeah, so it was just like all these random experiences, meeting interesting people and kind of just picking up different parts of I don't know, just like different aspects of.
You were like piecing together the things that you thought were interesting.
Yeah.
And like kind of getting a wide range of skills.
All while being obsessed with Us Weekly.
Sure.
And had a subscription, and it was like every Friday it got delivered. It hit newsstands on Wednesdays, but on Friday it got delivered. And I would come home from school and I would read that cover to cover. And I always thought that I would grow up to be the editor-in-chief of Us Weekly. And so after the summers with the Red Sox, I then was an intern at Extra. And there I did every single job possible. I was like pulling B-roll from tapes in the library. I was researching stories. I was going on set and like filming. I think it was like the 2005-6 version of 90210 was on at the time, and we were like filming a segment at Ladue which like has intersected in my life and in my world in so many weird ways. And so I was like starting to see how content got made and how stories were being told. And I was just obsessed with pop culture. And I laugh about it now because I'm like, this dream that I had of being the editor-in-chief of Us Weekly has kind of come to be in its own 2024 version
That's what I was gonna
of
say, yeah.
media.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not the editor-in-chief of a magazine, but I am essentially like an editor-in-chief of women's lifestyle content across all these different types of media. So I kind of feel like I landed in my dream job without even really without even really like working towards that.
Well, I think you were, but there are two types of people, I think. And when I'm talking about like career ambitious people, there's lots of different types of people. But there are people who I think follow an opportunity and say, like, I can take something from this. Like, I think this is interesting. I'm going to try it. And you have a collection of those types of experiences over a career. I think that's how I have had the sort of random career I have had. And there are some people who are like, I am going to be Supreme Court Justice of the United States of America. Thus, I must go to Harvard Law School. I must clerk here. I must do this and that. It's a very like linear path, and they're just focused on that path. Totally different personality types, I think. But that first one where you're just like collecting experiences and putting them in your bucket, I think lend to sort of creative strategic roles where you have to think of lots of different things at the same time.
Yes, and wear a lot of hats. And I think that like because I had all this random experience, I maybe wasn't like an expert in one thing, but I knew enough and picked up enough like information and skills and tools to apply to the next thing that I did.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it was fun to take each experience and kind of carry it into the next. And yeah, it was like the Dear Media thing really fell into my lap. It was like being in the right place at the right time. I had, after all these internships, then I graduated college. We were in the middle of a recession. None of my friends were getting jobs. I was nannying because I was just trying to keep myself busy and, make some money. And my sister was on a reality television show at the time. And
which one was it?
So she was on The Hills.
Never heard of it.
And then the spinoff, The City.
Sure.
And this was like very early days of social media. Instagram did not exist. Facebook was kind of moving outside of the world of college at the time. And I think like it was more businesses were coming on board as opposed to like people's parents and grandparents. And Twitter. It was like Twitter was the major social media platform at the time. And blogs. And so I was like, let me help you build a presence on social media.
How old were you when you were saying this to her? Have you ever wondered, wow, I would love for this podcaster to sell me something already? Well, you're in luck. Today I'm selling you on something highly exclusive, highly niche, highly Mutha. Just kidding. We're in the early stages over here, but if you've got a company or a cause you'd like to promote on the pod, get in touch. We're a good time.
I was 22.
And how much older?
This is 2009.
Okay. So you're 22. She's how old?
24.
24. Okay.
And
just babies.
Yeah. I remember I was at the beach with my sister and my parents. And at the time, my sister and my dad was a dadager, and they were having some sort of business conversation. And my sister was doing a deal with a company called Buzz Media, and Buzz Media at the time ran a site called Celeb Buzz, which was basically like another Perez Hilton, Just Jared kind of site where they were just posting like paparazzi shots and sharing entertainment news. And they were also running celebrity blogs. And so they ran Britney Spears and Nicole Richie. And I'm trying to think of who else was. I mean, it was all the Kardashians. It was Kris, Kourtney, Khloe, the Kylies and Kendall, I think, were together. And there were these two women there who were overseeing all of these women's blogs. And I basically said to Whitney, like, I know you, I know your voice. Let me be just like a part of this and help build a brand on social, because I think that this is going to be something. And she was like, great. Like, and it was funny because at the time she was 24, and you would have thought that she would have been like an early adopter to social media, but she was like, I don't really have an interest in this. So like, if you want to do it, go for it. And so it was through that where then I got a whole new experience of understanding the world that we now know as social media today, and overseeing her content strategy across Twitter and then Instagram and Facebook and all of these different YouTube and all these different platforms. And then came the really fun part, which was the creative around brand partnerships and sponsorships and building her clothing line. And so it was really in working with my sister and my dad, and my brother was a part of the company back then too, that I basically had just like a front row seat as to what was happening in entertainment.
So, okay, so you finished college. Wait, we have to take a step back to Wisconsin, because Wisconsin people are fucking psychotic.
Best. We are the best.
You're all obsessed with it.
I am not like I as I say, we are the best and Wisconsin is the best.
Tongue in cheek, a little.
It was the best 4 years of my life. Like, I had the most incredible college experience. And I told this story actually to someone recently. They were sending their kid to college a couple weeks ago and just saying how like the transition from that has been so hard. And I said that I vividly remember when my parents dropped me off at Wisconsin and moved me into the dorms. I did not want to go. I had never gone to sleepaway camp. Like, the longest I had been away from home was those few summers in Boston, the years leading up to college. And I did not want to go to Wisconsin. Like, I thought I was going to go to USC. I got in second semester. I didn't want to start late. And so Wisconsin just became where I was. And my parents said goodbye as like after move-in, and my mom was like, I can't wait till you call me and tell me how much you love your school. And I at the time was like this bratty little like stubborn kid, and I said, it's never gonna happen. And my mom said it was 48 hours until she heard from me, and I had already had the best time. And it was 2 days in, and I was so happy. And Wisconsin was it was a wonderful college town. It was amazing people. The change of pace, I think, was nice and different from what I had grown up with. I also went to a school that had 120 kids in a grade. And so being thrown into this massive university where there aren't a ton of eyes on like everything that you're doing and that's going on, it was a whole new world.
Now, your husband was there at the same time, but you didn't know each other? You did know each other?
Well, no, we did not. We lived in the same dorm, never crossed paths. There was one of his very good friends lived on my floor in the dorms freshman year. Ben and I never met. Like, this kid Joe and I remained friends throughout college, and there were like friends in common that we had, but we never met at Wisconsin. And then after college, I moved back to LA. He's from the East Coast. He moved back to the East Coast and went to law school, and he always wanted to be in entertainment. And so he was basically working in entertainment during the day and in law school at night. And he drove cross country and moved to LA the day after he graduated from law school. And that was June of 2012. And we met at a Halloween party a couple months later.
And what was that meeting like? Was it like, wait, you're a Wisconsin person? I'm a Wisconsin person. We're so obsessed with our college. Like, what was it? What was that initial attraction?
It started as we were at a pregame,
Sure.
as us Wisconsin kids call them. Pregames, there's the A bar, which is after bar.
Not familiar.
Yeah. So pregame is, I think
Sure.
is obviously like you are drinking before the bars and before the whatever's happening.
Sure.
And then there was A bar, which was after bar. So all the bars at Wisconsin closed at 2. And so at 2, the party obviously couldn't stop.
Obviously.
And so we obviously had to find another place to party. And usually it was at someone's apartment or house or like at a fraternity or something. And so the A bar was just the continuation of the party and the night.
So you're doing this, both of you are now adults, not in the Wisconsin universe. Well, you never leave the Wisconsin universe, apparently.
You're always in it.
But you're here, you're at this party.
And I see him.
Yeah.
And I tell him that he looks super familiar. That's it. I'm just like, you look
Okay.
super familiar.
Oh.
Not even flirting.
Sure.
Just making conversation.
Sure, just
Absolutely
a bit of
not
a
flirting.
chat. Okay, Paige.
And he really was just like, I don't know, like totally blew me off, like did not want to chit chat. And then we went to this Halloween party. So we finished the pregame, went to the party. And at the party, we were in like a group. This friend, Joe, who lived on the floor freshman year with me, ended up moving out cross country with him. And so through mutual
Wait,
friends.
are you wearing costumes? I need to know if there are costumes.
We are in costumes.
What are you-
We are actually both football players too.
Okay.
We, Ben was in a Jets jersey
Okay.
he was in costume dressed as Tim Tebow.
Sure.
And I had a custom Friday Night Lights Panthers jersey made. I was working in fashion at the time and had our seamstress work together and make me a costume. And I was Tim Riggins from Friday Night Lights.
Sure.
I have photos. We can get that for the mother
For the show
life.
notes.
Yeah.
We need them for the show notes.
For the Instagram stories to promote. And we were both football players. And so we were hanging at this party in like a group, and then there was this guy there who was being a total do we swear on
Fucking
Okay.
obviously.
Okay, so there was this guy there who was being a total asshole to me.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
not
like
even
called me
swearing.
out on something. I can't even remember what it was, and I totally snapped back. And I think Ben was like, whoa, where did that come from? And I think was like kind of intrigued by like the clapback. And then
knowing your husband, the fact that was the thing that was like, hey baby, like that, it could not actually be more him at all. Like that, the fact that he was like, oh, she's got a pair on her, she's gonna stand up for, could not be more. Very funny.
And then we just kept hanging out that night.
And you're still hanging out.
And we're still hanging out. We I'm trying to think of, it was Halloween, and then I think he got sick or I got sick, and we went on a first date. And then it was like Thanksgiving, and he went back east, and we were texting and chatting a bunch. And then we just kept dating.
And in this process, had there been discussions about like what your expectations were long term? Like, you know, I love on a reality show, people talk about this. I think Amanda Hirsch talks about this all the time. When realities start, people are like, I want to have 5 kids. I want to have 8 kids. Because they're like 20 and have no idea what it's like to have a child.
I was that person.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you.
Well, because growing
You
up
also
as
grew
one
up
of
with
5 kids,
Right.
5 kids was normal to me. And like 5 kids was doable. And 5 kids was just what I knew. And so I always thought that growing up that I wanted to have 5 kids. And then like years down the line of being with Ben and being married and realizing what that entailed, I was like, absolutely not. And I was always in the boat of like maybe 3. And Ben was always in the boat of like maybe 2 or 3. And I think we're good with 2. But yeah, we had talked about that early on. The thing is that our relationship progressed very quickly because my dad was sick and there was a trip. So
Wait, how old are you at this point in the story?
So at this point, I am 25.
25. Okay.
Yeah. At this point, I'm 25. And so we meet Halloween, and the following March, so a couple months later, was Ben's dad's 60th birthday. And there was a surprise trip and party in Miami where one of his brothers was living.
Okay.
And I was invited on this trip, this family trip for the birthday and like to meet his siblings and the whole thing. And at this point, I had met his parents once. They had been in LA, and so I met them. And looking back on it, I'm laughing about the outfit that I wore. It was like leather pants.
You're like, I want to show them I'm a fashion girl.
Yeah, and like some sort of blouse.
I'm sophisticated.
Some like a going out top, you know? And, but it was, so Ben and I were supposed to go to Miami. And a couple days before we were supposed to leave, my dad basically like took a turn and ended up passing away. And Ben called his mom because his dad didn't know and was like, I don't really know what to do. I like really love this girl. And like, I don't think that I can come to Miami for Dad's birthday. And he stayed. And it was just like the relationship was just like accelerated and on fast forward at that point. As like we really committed to each other, and like he committed to me and to my family and to all of us as we
That
were.
makes me a little emotional. I'm a little teary thinking about it. That's really beautiful, actually. And especially, guys, if you knew Ben, like he's not a warm and fuzzy guy, so this is really extra beautiful, I think.
And that's the thing, is that it's like when you get to know him, he is this warm and fuzzy guy. Like he is this kind of like gentle giant. But when you just meet him and see him, you're like, oh, who's this guy? Like he looks like a football player, you know?
He does.
And so it was like the days and the weeks and the months that followed that, it was like Ben pretty much like moved into my parents' house with all of our significant others. Like we all kind of moved into my parents' house, and everyone was sleeping there, and it was like every meal was there, and friends and family were in and out, and it was just like this weird version of summer camp that I never knew, but it was just like an all-in intense thing. And so that was 5 months into, not even 5 months into meeting, and it just happened really fast and got really serious very quickly. We were 25.
Yeah. And then at what point did you guys decide to get married?
So I was living at my mom's house for a little bit during this time. Ben had an apartment, and we were kind of like going back and forth, but mostly sleeping at my mom's house. And then we, a year later, maybe it was, moved into an apartment together in Brentwood. And we knew, I don't know, it was like,
you just kind of knew already it was your person.
Like
so,
we knew very early on that this was it. And I had one sister who was engaged and getting married in, I think it was November of 2015. Then I had another sister who got engaged and was getting married in February of 2016. Okay. And so Ben and and then Ben's brother and his wife were engaged and getting married in June of 2016. So Ben and I talked about getting married, and the timeline we always talked about was like after all these weddings, like then we'll think about like rings and this next chapter. And like there was no pressure on either side. Like we knew we were together. Neither of us was in a rush to make it happen. And like 2 months before the first siblings wedding, he out of nowhere proposed.
Oh, sweet.
And that was, and then we got married a year later. So it just was, I don't know, it just happened.
It's very sweet. We're going to come back to this story, or this thread, because this is obviously like the now predominant thread. But before we get there, looking back and looking at the present, you are extremely close with your siblings. It seems like all of you in different configurations, somebody's always at somebody's house. You're all spending time together. How do you ever think about like how that happened, or what the special sauce was that created this? Because it's not a sure thing that just because you have siblings that you all spend time together and like each other. Do you feel like there are things that your parents did consciously or unconsciously that sort of engendered the closeness? Or, because that's the dream, right? Like you want your kids to like each other and want to hang out with each other.
I think that like as a family, we always did a lot together. Like as 5 kids with a 10-year age gap from the oldest to the youngest, we were always kind of like along for the ride. And whether it was at the baseball field or a dance class or a birthday party, like it was always traveling as a pack. And like my family had this nickname, and I think it started from families at my brother's Little League. From his team, it was like we were the Swarm, and my dad at a certain point had
adorable.
a license plate that was Swarmin', and it was just like wherever one was, like there was a swarm of us. And so I think it was just we did a lot of stuff as a family together, and like every Monday through Thursday we sat down for dinner as a family. On Friday, whoever was around, we would go out for dinner. On Saturday nights was date night for my parents. And then on Sunday was always like some sort of family day, usually a trip to Costco because we were 7 people. And sometimes my grandparents lived with us. So there was like a house of 9 that needed all the things.
Yeah.
And I think it was just like being together and always supporting one another. And listen, there were friends of ours or siblings where like we would fight or leave one another out or whatever, but it was like there were so many people and kids around our house that it was always just like everyone was kind of included in something.
Yeah.
And so it's been also really cool over the years because our friends are friends. And it was so crazy. One of my sister Whitney's best friends was living in New York at the time when our dad passed. And a few of my best friends were living in New York at the time that my dad passed. And we'd always said like, oh, you guys should be together. And in those few weeks of everyone being around the house, they all started hanging out. And then they went back to New York and they all started hanging out all the time and became best friends. And we're all still best friends. And so over the years, it's like our friends have all become friends, which makes it that much easier for us all to hang out.
Right. So you really optimized your relationships in that way. That's
totally
kind of genius. Accidental genius. And then I know there's a point where you and Whitney are working together and there's a decision that's made that's like, actually, we just want to be sisters again.
Yeah.
And because working together as a family, like that's a recipe for some sort of mess. Like you can't do that forever.
Yeah.
I mean, people do, but like it just adds a whole nother dimension of things you could potentially argue about.
I mean, we worked really well together. And there was always this running joke of she had business cards that said the boss, and then my business card said the boss's boss. And I was always the younger sister, but I was like, I was overseeing all these operations, and the way that my brain worked was just thinking about I could anticipate everything. And because I knew her so well and because she trusted me, it worked. Where we were a well-oiled machine, and she ran with creative and design and all these things, and I was more of like the operations. And after our dad passed, and then it was just Whitney, my brother, and I who were doing this, it was just like dynamics were not what we all where they started.
Yeah.
And Whitney was just like, I don't want to manage my siblings anymore. Like I want to just be siblings.
Dad was kind of a buffer before that. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And so at the time it was sad because I really loved working with her and we were such a great duo, but it's been fun because it's evolved over the years and we still get to work together, but just in a different capacity.
Yeah. And you both kind of have really leaned into the things that you were really passionate about at the time and have kind of taken them to a fuller expression in a way.
Yeah, for sure. It's been she still does all the things that she was doing in terms of designing and creating content and partnerships and like being this really thoughtful, creative director. And I now get to like, play my own game of like chess in keeping, I don't know, just like.
There's even more. You're basically doing a multiple of what you were doing for Whitney, but like for lots of things now.
Totally. And it's for a lot of different clients and with a lot of different backgrounds and desires and opportunities. And so that's the part that I now love is like I get to do a little bit of everything where I can still get to work with Whitney and come up with ideas and like help her grow her business, but I'm not in the day-to-day of anything that she does, but I now get to do that also for 60 other shows that we have and dozens of talent and working with brands and press and it's just like it's kind of not that it's come full circle, but it's now come
it's a new evolution.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I always find very infectious when I spend time with you is how much you do genuinely love your job. Like you just really love your job and it's so nice to see. And also you do really love your job being a parent. And so where were you in this career arc when you first came into the picture?
So I was at Dear Media in my current, I was not in the, did not have the title I have today, but I was at Dear Media when I had my first kid. And I actually was straddling Dear Media and DBA, another business at the same time when my first kid, when Wolf was born. And he was born in February of 2020. And so it was a crazy time where it was like 4 weeks of just like normalcy. And then we were all essentially in lockdown and the village and every person thing went away. And so when I came back from maternity leave 3 months later, the world was in a different place and the needs of the businesses were in different places. And I had already been spending a lot of my time on the Dear Media side. And I made the decision then that like I needed to go all in on that business. Like I kind of already was. And at that point, it was August of 2020 where I left my role within the DBA world and I then was fully Dear Media. And so it was a role that I knew and it was a team that I was used to and familiar with and a business that I was helping to build. And it was kind of this blessing because I was working from home and had a newborn and I was able to spend all this extra time with my child. And sure, it was a shit show and complicated and exhausting because there was no separation from work and personal life. But it was lovely because my husband and I essentially got these like 15 extra months at home watching our son grow into this, cute little tiny human.
Oh my God. He was the little pictures of him as like a toddler are insanely cute. But you are somebody who you don't like know what giving 70% means. It's like a real 100%, 110% thing for you. And I know you're always thinking about work and how to optimize and do things. Like you can't help yourself. The kids are at soccer and you're like, what podcast are you guys listening to? Like you can't help yourself. How does that, or does it not, rock your world when Wolf does show up and like now you do have this other thing sort of tugging on your attention really for the first time?
I think that I think it took some time and is still taking time to figure that out. And I think that it was really just being intentional and focused with my time of like when I'm at work, I'm at work, and when I'm at home, I'm at home. And as I continue down this like professional path, I am working really hard on separating from my phone and from my computer and from my email and from people when I am with my kids. And I find
that very hard.
I am definitely a work in progress.
Yeah, I find that
and there
really
are
hard.
certain things that I've been able to do, and there's certain things that I am still working on. But I leave my office every day at like a certain time so that I can be home for dinner and bath time and bedtime with my kids. And I just prioritize my family because the work is always going to be there. And so it's like, how can I be as efficient with my time as possible while I'm working on my job? And how can I maximize and enjoy my time with my children when I'm with them and with my husband? And I need to put my phone down at the end of the night. Like, even if it's just Ben and I watching TV, like I need to put my phone down, like things can wait.
And thinking about sort of all of these pieces coming together, you've got Ben, who you just like even said at the beginning, oh, we went on a date today for lunch, which is very sweet. And oh, we have to reschedule the podcast because Wolf might have strep, so I have to take him to the doctor. Like you are constantly making that shuffle happen. And you're somebody who is super interested in optimizing and also taking care of yourself. Like how many days a week do you go to the gym?
I'm trying for like 4 to 5.
Yeah. And you're doing that at what time?
I go at 6:30 in the morning.
Right. So you are, to me, because I'm now in this phase of trying to spend more time on myself, I am finding it very overwhelming to make time for myself in the constellation of work and being there for my kids. I know it's so important, but I find it stressful in a way because it's like, why is it stressful for me to take care of myself? It feels less stressful if I don't do that.
If I'm being totally honest with you, and this is one of the many reasons why I love my husband, is that my husband sometimes he's able to see what I need more than he's able to see what I need more than I am able to see it for myself.
Yeah.
And he also pushes me outside of my comfort zone. Like, I love to sleep. If I could wake up at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock every day, like that would be heaven. Like I love going to sleep late. I would love to sleep in. My life doesn't allow for that. Like I have kids, they wake up at 7 o'clock, usually sometimes before then. My kid is coming in my room, something. And Ben was just like, Paige, like if you want to work out, like you have to get up earlier, like that's just what our life is right now. And it really took Ben like continuing to push me out of my comfort zone to be like, this is something, you want to do it, but you have to make the time for it and you're not going to do it. And it was his idea to do F45 and it was his idea to do the early thing. And it's working. And
but also the part that's important to say is he's not just pushing you to do it, but he's backing you because he's taking care of the kids in the morning, right?
Yes. And like we definitely have a routine that we figured out where I go to a workout and he gets the kids up, he gets them changed and dressed, he starts to get breakfast on the table so that when I come back from my workout, either we finish the routine together and take our oldest to school, or then we basically like he swaps out and I swap in and I finish the routine, and like we have this like handoff. So it takes a lot of communication and planning, and I put every single thing in my calendar.
Yeah.
Like I put my workout in my calendar today, even in like I had a work block, and I literally listed like for every 10 minutes the things that I needed to do in that window to keep me on track, because there's a lot of things that I want to accomplish every day, both personally and professionally. And it's easier for me to see it on the calendar. So I think like Ben has definitely been helpful in helping me prioritize things that I want for myself. And I now feel very grateful and thankful for this new routine that we have and this handoff that we can do. And so then on the weekends, he's training right now for the New York Marathon. And he does his long runs on the weekends. So it's like he does the morning shift for the 5 days during the week and then does the handoff. I do the morning shift on the weekends. He's gone for longer than I am because he's now running like 15
They're long runs, yeah.
miles. So he's out for a while. And it's just figuring out with like, between in our partnership, who needs to do what and when to take care of themselves. And we don't always get it right. And it's something that will be an evolution of like, as our son's school schedule changed, it was like, okay, now what does this look like? And the time is here. And this is like, who's doing this? And how is that? And where's our daughter? And the whole thing. So it's like, it's constantly, I feel like I'm constantly trying to be efficient with my time.
And like that in and of itself is both a work in progress, but also can be stressful. I mean, you are somebody, you literally have a podcast, Diddle, check it out. I'll leave a link in the show notes, where you talk to people about their routines, because you are constantly pulling the best of everybody you know and trying to be like, oh, maybe I could add this. Maybe I could optimize this vitamin. Maybe if I do 10 minutes of this, maybe if I look at the sun before I do, you're constantly thinking about all that stuff. Doesn't it get a little overwhelming though?
Yeah, and you have to take some of it and leave the rest behind. Like right now, I feel like I am focusing on just like some supplements, and as I age, as a young woman, it's keeping myself young and healthy. But I think that it's just, take what works for you. And it's also like you have no idea what anyone else is going through. So it's like what you see on social media or in someone's routine or this or that, like you have no idea what really is behind all of that and the why or the help that they have or the whatever it is. And so it's like, do what works for you. And that's what Ben and I are always, I think, trying to achieve, is just like what works for us as individuals, as a couple, as a family, and how can we always just show up as hopefully our best selves in whatever scenario it is.
I remember when you first got your first nanny. I remember this time distinctly because we were in the parking lot of Wolf's old school, my son's current school, and you looked at me with these wide eyes, and I was like, so what does the nanny do? Because we up until the au pair got here, we've never had anything like that either. And you were like, she'll even make food. And like it was both this, like we were both just like looking at each other like, what? There's gonna be this like level of support that didn't exist before. Now we're fast forwarding a year and a half, 2 years or something, whatever it's been. Do you now feel comfortable receiving that like additional backup? Are you like used to having that extra person as part of the sort of team?
Yes, and like the team doesn't exist without her. And the team doesn't exist without a lot of people. Like it really does take a village. And I believe that, but it takes a village in a lot of different areas of life. Like, I could not do this without the incredible team and people at Dear Media. Like, there is an entire support staff there that helps me and our entire business in the day-to-day. There's my husband. There's our incredible nanny. There's my sisters. There's my in-law. Like, there's family, there's friends. There's so many people. And this doesn't operate without the help from others.
I think that's one of the most confusing things I find with, I obviously like consume a lot of parenting content on social media, both critically and just passively. It's being sent to me all the time. I do think the support system piece is often missing, because you get like there's the funny moms, the thoughtful moms, the like wise moms, and everybody has their perspective and their hot tips and takes and hacks for you. But like, none of them, and it's not necessarily their job, but it's just confusing because nobody's talking about all of the support that they have. And so like, how do you have that perfectly curated living room where there isn't shit everywhere and you're also doing all of these things? It's just like, there's this kind of dissonance where I don't think that they're doing it on purpose, not mentioning all of these people that help our lives run. I just feel like there's some responsibility there to just let people know that like, I'm not actually doing this all by myself.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Yeah, because it just makes it feel impossible.
Yeah, it's
and it makes you feel bad when you do need help.
Yeah, no, and I think that's like, there's so many parents who don't ask for help or don't who just don't even it's like they don't even
know that it's an option.
Yeah. And so, no, I feel very fortunate. And it's, it pushes me to continue to work hard.
Let's talk a little bit about, so you and Ben, there's like this really nice yin and yang of helping and supporting each other in your goals and making sure that you're taking care of yourselves. How much time do you guys spend talking about like parenting or approaches to things that you're doing with the kids or how you want to do things? Are you having sort of active conversations about that, or does it sort of come up because some like Wolf's being a shit today because all of our kids are shit some days? Like, how are we going to handle it? Like, how do you guys kind of navigate?
It's a little bit of both. Like, sometimes it is more proactive conversations, and then sometimes, or maybe more often than not, it feels more reactive. I would say when there's like big decisions to make about like, are we transitioning our kid from like the crib to a bed or things like that, like those become more proactive conversations that we engage in, whereas I feel like the discipline stuff and like Wolf's being a little shit or something like that is
Wolf.
more reactive.
You're just an example.
Yeah.
We love you. You're fucking incredible.
But that is an ongoing conversation. And Ben,
are you the same type of thinker about it?
Yeah. Oh no, we are opposites. And
who's representing what camp?
I would say Ben is representing more of the disciplinarian. I am representing the authoritative, or I'm trying to think of like all the words of all the classifications. I have a little bit of like a softer approach.
Right. And you're more about like boundaried parenting, or what is probably incorrectly called gentle parenting, where you're saying your kids' feelings back to them, but you're holding firm on.
I believe I do that.
Yeah.
Of like, listen, let them feel what they're feeling. Like, I believe something that I learned from Dr. Eliza Pressman is all feelings are welcome, all behaviors are not.
Yeah, I love that she says that.
Like to practice that. And I think that I'm just more patient. And so when our kid is yelling or screaming or doesn't get what he wants, I will just let him go, and I will be quiet. And I will allow the behavior so long as it's not dangerous.
Right. He's not hitting somebody. Yeah.
And Ben and I will disagree, like usually in that scenario where
Crosby and I are the exact same. And
you got to stop. Like this is
cut that shit out.
Yeah. This behavior is ridiculous. It is not acceptable. And like, it's time to be done.
Yeah. In those moments when, because we're the exact same in this house, and in those moments, like Crosby's totally entitled to be like, enough is enough, like stop, like go sit and take a break. You clearly need a break. And I can't help sometimes being like, how will this scar him? Will he be in therapy because his dad told him to take a break? Like, I just can't help, because I'm like, this isn't what the internet told me I'm supposed to do. And I just find myself in these moments being like, oh no. But it's always, I mean, I think it's going to be fine.
They're going to be fine.
And also, they're all going to go to therapy. It's just not going to be for the things we think. Right?
I think you're right. Yeah. So we have different thoughts, but we have really been working on our communication. And I think it's been really helpful for us to like regroup after what I'll say, like an episode, you know, of just like a check-in with each other, of talking about what happened and how we handled it and how maybe we could approach it differently moving forward, and really trying to hear each other out. And it's like, sometimes it's been a long day and it's the weekend and the behavior has just gone out of control and like the fuse is short and it's just like, we are done here, you know, like, and I understand that. And I also snap too. Like I can also have a short fuse and not handle things perfectly. And so I think that for us, it's just about really talking about it after the fact and just thinking about how can we maybe like do better or handle things differently the next time.
Yeah. And I feel like obviously Wolf is bearing the brunt because he is more of a fully realized human. Your younger daughter is also the apple of my eye, and quite personally, I don't think she could literally do anything wrong ever. So send her to my house when she's in trouble, when she's 16.
She'll get there. I know. Ben and I can like already see this like feisty
mischief.
Personality that's forming. And it's like she fools you with these sweet eyes and big cheeks, and like she just looks like this like sweet, loving little angel. And then you're like, wait, you are a smart one.
Yeah. You got to watch out for her. Yeah. But she can do no wrong, quite frankly, ever. But do you feel like you guys have some like guiding principles or direction where you're saying this is the kind of kids we want to raise?
I mean, I think that we're aligned in the fact that we want to raise kind, patient kids who care about family and being a good friend and contributing to a community. And it's like, I mean, everyone wants to raise good kids.
I think good is just a variable thing. Like what that means, I think, is different. Like some people, I think, do say like, I want my kids to be the best at whatever it is they want to do. I want them to be the best at it. Or
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, Ben and I joke about like what our kids will be when they grow up one day, you know. And it's like, Ben is like, they will, like, Wolf is absolutely not allowed to be an actor. But at the end of the day, I just want my kids to be nice to people, and I want them to respect anyone and everyone that they meet. And I like, even Wolf just started at a new school, and we were like, hey, you know, like, you're going to this new school, you know, a few kids there. Like, there may be kids who are starting who don't have friends that they know already, and like who may be playing alone, and like you should invite them to come play with you and your friends. And so it's like, I think it's just...
He does that. Like, he does. So I think part of the reason why I was asking is because there have been a couple of times where I've seen him do something and I'm like, he has to be learning that from somewhere. And one is including kids. Your son is very good at that, and not all kids are. And two, and I think I've told you the story, I definitely told Ben, is one time there was a kid being a little shit to my kid. A big kid. It was a big kid being a little shit to my little kid. And your son was there, and your son was about half the size of the kid who was being a shit. And he just looked at him and he said, it's not your turn. And he just wait, and he stood there and stood up for his friend, and he didn't do anything. He just said, it's not your turn. and he waited for the big kid to just cut it out. And like he stood up for his friend and he did it in such a classy way. And he's like a little kid. And he just did this very sophisticated, socially sophisticated thing. And I was just like, this is so cool. If this is how kids are behaving now, like we kind of have a shot. We have a shot at not everything just burning to the ground.
I mean, that makes me smile and feel great. And I like, you know, I'm so proud of Wolf for that. And I think, yeah, I think that like I was not that kid. Like I was shy and I was timid and I was quiet, and like my mom would have to squeeze my hand, you know, to like remind me to say thank you. And like I didn't volunteer to read in class and things like that. And now she's like, Paige, like you are a different human being, you know, like you are loud and you share like your opinions are heard. And it's just like a confidence that I found. And I feel like the word confident is something that Ben and I talk about too, is like, I want my kids to feel confident and not in like a obnoxious in your face, you know, like proud
coming from
kind
a place
way.
of comfort.
Yeah. Of
with
just,
who they are.
Yeah. And like standing up for what's right and standing up for friends and people and just doing the right thing.
I have so many questions I want to ask you. We don't have time, so we're gonna have to do this again because
Part 2.
Yeah, because there's more to talk about. We didn't get into this piece, which we will talk about at a later date. This sandwich generation piece. Are you familiar with this term?
No.
Where you are both taking care of young kids and also starting to take care of your parents.
Yeah.
We are both in this chapter of our lives, and almost all of my friends are. And so that's like a new realization that I'm just trying to think about how I navigate that.
Yeah.
So we'll have to.
Part 2 on mother life.
Yeah, on mother life. Thank you for always.
I'll be back.
Thank you for always being so supportive of Mutha. I remember I was fully expecting you when I said I was going to start this project to say, Carrie, there are 2 million podcasts. Just don't do it. Like, don't waste your time. And you were like, go for it. Why not? And it's given me so much, and I'm so happy I've done it. And you were really, basically, if you had told me not to do it, I wouldn't have done it.
What? Oh my God, no, absolutely not. I'm so glad that you're doing this. This is such a needed, I think, platform and conversation, and you're a genius and so smart. And the way that you talk about parenthood and just life is fun and funny. And thank you for having me on.
Can't wait for the next time. Paige, you're the best.
You're the best.
Mwah!
Love you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another chat in the closet. In the meantime, follow along on Instagram and subscribe to the Mother Life Substack. This podcast was produced by Mother Life, music by Ronan Linda. See you next time.